Hello, my name is Richard Perez, and we are talking about implicit storage, optimally achieving least cost 100% renewable power generation. I'd like to acknowledge my co-presenters, Mark Perez, who is the prime author of this work, and Tom Hoff from Clean Power Research. So this is PV. It's variable, as we know. Some people say intermittent. And that's what's needed on the power grid, which is currently supplied by firm and dispatchable resources like nuclear and fossil fuels. As a result of that intermittency, PV occupies a marginal position on that grid and needs the underlying resources to function. It doesn't have a grid dominant 100% position yet. And we're all familiar with the Doug curves that are growing on utility grids all over the world. But this is a small intraday issue that could be resolved easily with storage. The bigger problem is multi-day and seasonal. Here it's a 1 year supply of PV on the left and load in the New York area. And you can see there are huge gaps that have to be filled. So how do you fill the gaps? How do you transform PV into a resource that's 24/365 available without fail, so it can move from its marginal position that it has today to something that's grid dominant? Well, there is energy storage that can do the job. When there is excess renewable, you put into storage, and when there is not enough, you take it back from storage. And everybody's thinking about storage as the big enabler of ultra-high penetration renewables. However, there is one major issue with that view. Whereas unconstrained PV is very inexpensive, according to Lazard, it's the cheapest way of making a pure kilowatt hour of electricity today. But firming it up 24/365 is extremely costly. And all that because you need so much storage to fill the seasonal gaps. But there is a solution to that, which until recently has been a little bit of an anathema for renewable production. You overbuild and you throw away by design some of the output, you curtail it. And when you do that, here on the x-axis I have the amount of oversizing of my PV supply. Something quite interesting happens. So the white line represents firm kilowatt hour LCOE. The red line is the contribution of PV to that LCOE, so it goes up as I overbuild and I throw away some of the output, which is not monetized. But the blue line, which represents the contribution of storage, goes way down until it reaches a point where it looks like you could do firm power, pure PV, affordably. In fact, it's so effective that we started calling it implicit storage, because it enables storage to do its job, supply power when there is not enough resource, but do it at a much reduced cost. And we're getting quite a bit of traction from the specialized press on this implicit storage idea. Here is a quote from Quartz business magazine. Solar energy is so cheap that it can be wasted. I would put it, solar energy is so cheap that it must be wasted. To achieve that least cost, you have to throw out some of the output. Here is a view of implicit storage. It's that overbuilt part of PV that can be curtailed, that doesn't get monetized, but that buys a very large reduction in storage requirements and cost of storage. So PV can supply load firmly 24/365, but at a much reduced cost. So implicit storage is a key enabler of that least cost ultra-high PV penetration. It's not the only one. There are others. One of the most important one is to optimally mix PV and wind resources that have complementarities. You can also provide flexibility on the load side, either on the supply side using dispatchable generation or demand side load management. And finally, you can do geographic dispersion of the resource to reduce the variability of that resource. But implicit storage is the most effective enabler as we'll see in that example from the Mid-Continent System Operator, where Clean Power Research conducted a major study last year. And we'll focus on balancing area number 4 of that independent system operator that covers roughly the state of Illinois. Let's look at utility scale renewable resource 20 years from now, where PV will cost about $400 per kilowatt and storage $50 per kilowatt hour, according to the NREL technology baseline. So if you disallow curtailment, overbuild, no implicit storage, this is what the situation would be, almost 30 cents per kilowatt hour for firm power generation using PV. It's probably too expensive for the economies of the world to accept. However, if you apply implicit storage, that cost can go down dramatically, close to 6 cents per kilowatt hour in that region. If you optimally combine wind and solar, you can go to 4.5 cents per kilowatt hour, so it's another big gain. If you supply flexibility, if you allow 5% of the energy to be either provided by demand-side management or by dispatchable generation like legacy natural gas, you can reduce this a bit further. And if you add geographic dispersion, in that case on the entire MISO, you gain a little step, but not all that much more. But the game changer, the most effective enabler by far, is implicit storage. However, remarkably, the strategy cannot be implemented today because it is not monetizable. I know of no developer who would curtail 1/3 of their output today. Firm power is not yet in the DNA of the remuneration and regulatory system. However, the solution is purely regulatory. You don't need any new technological breakthrough to buy you that very low-cost firm renewable power. All it takes is good regulatory thinking and new ways of remunerating PV, for instance, remuneration based on kilowatt supply, on capacity supply, or fostering the optimal blending of all those enabling strategies and technology. And if we do that, the sky's the limit. I think we can achieve 100% renewable power generation at very low cost. Cost is not an issue. And as we present in another presentation in this session, space is not an issue either. So on this, I'll thank you very much for your attention and we'll be happy to take questions.